Everyone loves to talk about having a growth mindset. But let's be real, curiosity without action is just procrastination with better branding. And my guest today, Jayneil Dalal, doesn't just learn new skills, he builds projects around them. From Design MBA to Sneak Peek, he's turned curiosity into a career engine. So stick around because we're talking about what it really takes to turn learning into momentum and why action beats intention every single time. What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome. I am super stoked to have you. How often do you stare at a blank Figma canvas unsure where to start? Well, this episode is brought to you by Mobbin, the ultimate UI and UX design inspiration library. Mobbin gives you instant access to over 400,000 beautifully designed UI and user flows from apps you love, and content is added weekly, so you never have to start from scratch again. Quickly find exactly what you need, search by app category, UI patterns, or even specific features. My team and I use Mobbin daily at work to find useful patterns, and it helps my team to work much more efficiently. And honestly, I can't imagine kicking off a new feature without Mobbin. So ready to level up your design process? Visit mobbin.com/beyondux to get 20% off Mobbin Pro and never run out of inspiration again. And if you haven't done it already, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. If you are regular here, you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would really appreciate you leaving a 5-star review. That'll help me out so much more than you can imagine. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, Kevin, Jason, Michelle, Marty, Tino, Adina, Zoe for all their support. And if you want to join these fine folks and many others and help keep the show independent and ad-free, you'll get exclusive access to the entire video library of episodes, including episodes before they're even released. Get instant access to those videos right now for as little as $5 a month. And for more information on how you can support the show and help more people find out about what we're doing, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. And of course, if you think the show is worth sharing, then I would love it if you told your mom and them. So we all love to talk about lifelong learning, but like I said, let's be honest, learning without doing doesn't get you very far. My guest today, the one and only Jayneil Dalal, has mastered the art of turning curiosity into action, and he's launched things like the Design MBA podcast, one of my favorite podcasts that got me into design podcasting, and then more recently Sneak Peek, which you have probably seen, where he's got a bunch of people going into their Figma files and all their tools that they use to learn and see and do from experts in the field. And he doesn't just absorb all that knowledge, but he builds systems around it. And today we're going to dig into how he stays consistent, what he's learned from all the hundreds of people that he has interviewed over the last, God, what is it, Jay, like 5 years, I think, 6 years, something like that, and how he stays close to the craft and keeps his curiosity and his career moving forward. You probably know Jayneil Dalal from things like Sneak Peek. Jay shows how top design teams use AI on Sneak Peek. Jay, welcome to Beyond UX Design, man. I am so honored to have you on. Like I said, one of my favorite podcasters from back in the day. Got me into podcasting myself, man. Huge honor to have you finally on Beyond UX. How's it going, dude?
First of all, I'm super jealous of your voice. You've got an incredible voice. Get out of here. Oh my God. And it's truly an honor to be here.
Man, it's an honor to have you on, like I said, man. And I've been listening to your podcast for years now, since you started it forever ago. You've interviewed so many people. And then you recently started doing something, dude, and I freaking love it. Sneak Peek, where you've got top designers, you're getting in there and you're having them actually show how the sausage is made. And we talk about craft all the time, and how important that is. But craft is such an ambiguous term, but you're actually showing everybody else what that really means and what high craft really looks like. And I freaking love it, dude. And I want to have you on today to really just unpack everything you've learned and all the insights and things from all the, since I can't interview all those people, I'm going to interview you and you could tell me all the amazing things you learned. But before we do that, dude, tell us a little bit about you and ultimately, how did you get on this learning journey that has evolved into what it's evolved to today, man?
So first of all, despite interviewing a lot of people as an interviewer, I hate being on the other end. Let me tell you that.
Okay.
Yeah. That's right. A lot of them get requests, I turn them down, but you are a homie. So for you, I'll definitely, it was no brainer. I'm going to be there. So yeah, there's definitely something about it where I just get really nervous, hearing my own voice, even though I do this a lot. So I was interviewing people anyways. I've always been curious from a very young age. I used to ask so many questions growing up to my parents that they got me that book when growing up. I mean, I don't even know if people remember. It's called Tell Me Why. So my mom got me that so that I would stop asking a lot of questions to them and like as the book. And then starting in 2018, around that time frame, if you remember, like chatbots were picking up, like suddenly everybody was building Slackbot and customizing their Slackbot. So I was reaching out to entrepreneurs building like unique chatbots with AI. This is even before ChatGPT. So I was interviewing all these people and then sharing their learnings at like a design conference. So what I would do is I would interview like a couple of like entrepreneurs that had raised VC funding to build an AI powered chatbot. Then I would apply for a design conference, hope to get selected. And I was basically on that speaking circuit and I would share these learnings from there. And one of my buddies, I was with him and then he was like, dude, what the fuck? Like, why are you relying on other people's platform to share what you want to say? Why not like just have like your own platform, right? And then I was just like, no, it's too late. This is 2019. So I was like, no, bro, it's too late. Too late to start a podcast. Like that time is gone. Like the time was like 2012 or 14 was the time to get into podcasting. And now my buddy, Donish, like he drives a Corvette. He's like, like he loves sports car. He's like, get the fuck in the car. So I was like, okay. And then he just races the shit out of that car on like a very like crowded highway. And then when you have like a sports car, you can kind of like zigzag your way through it. And then when we got out of that whole crowded highway on the main road where it's free, and he's like, this is what you need to do. When you start your own thing, it's going to feel very crowded because there's so much noise. But once you keep at it, you're going to find your sweet spot. And then you're going to be off to the races. So I think something about driving in that car and him saying it and showing it to me was like, okay, it's not too late. So I was like, okay, I think I might start something. And then at the time I was working at like a very large Fortune 500 company and I was really bored, man. Like, the work was stagnant and I was just like, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Like I was just lost career-wise and this felt like very exciting to do. And then at the same time, because I was in Dallas, somebody introduced me to this guy, Tony Dosat, and he had started one of the earliest design podcasts in the space, Experience Design Podcast. And we met up at a Podbelly and then we just like talked shop and then he inspired me. He's like, bro, like this is how you do it. And then he was my idol to get into like podcasting. So it was like with him, I just was like, all right, my last day at the company was April, I think 2020. So I was like, as an ultimate FU to the company, I'll launch my podcast on that same day. So, and then at the same time, I was seeing a lot of designers like spend $200,000 to go to Harvard Business School. Cause then you're like, okay, I've got Harvard Business School like on my like degree. So now I can become a design manager. So I was seeing a lot of that career trajectory and I was like, I'm not going to spend that amount of money. So I was like, what if I just interview people, build my own platform, and then for a fraction of a cost, learn all that. So that was kind of like the genesis for like launching Design MBA and starting that. And then kind of like, it's like when you start a podcast, dude, I figured out that you can just invite somebody, ask them all the questions you wanted to do. They're more likely to respond to you. And the most important part is I've built so many amazing friendships with people because of that show.
I love it, man. Well, here's the thing I want to, the main theme I want to dig into today is this idea though, like everybody talks about having this growth mindset, but like, you could have gone to Harvard, you could have gotten an MBA, you could have taken online classes and then done what with it, And what I love about what you've done is you had a bias for action. You went out and you actually did it. And I think this is really important. And a lot of people, right, they'll say they're lifelong learners and they do nothing with any of the stuff that they've learned. I'm curious, like, what do you think most people get wrong about that idea of being a lifelong learner? Like, what do you think you have done differently to actually make stuff with the things that you've learned versus most people who just sort of collect degrees like they're Pokemon cards or something?
Man, I kind of feel bad. It feels like I'm bragging or something, but there's something about like executing on an idea that is more valuable than just sitting on it. Like even like with Sneak Peek, I got so many messages like, oh, I was thinking about the exact same thing. But yeah, you were, but you didn't ship it.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Then a lot of people were like, hey, do you mind if I copy this idea? And then I was like, go for it. Because I know they're not going to do it. Like, a lot of people are asking me like, hey, are you not worried about somebody copying the Sneak Peek format? Like, yeah, you can. But like one episode sometimes takes me on an average 3 months to 6 months to produce. Because like, let's say I get like a big name to come on the show. right? Like I got Slack on, the team. So it's like we to like start the conversation. That took about a month. Then the interview process, editing that, holding it took another month, and travel depending on the guest schedule. Then it took another month to get the legal teams there to review it. So there's very few people that have the patience of like, unless they worked in really big organizations where things move very slow, they haven't built the patience where they're willing to see through that. So that's kind of like I would look at the mode of Sneak Peek, where I don't know how many people are willing to sit through that like 6 month timeline of like, all right, I'm going to wait for 6 months, follow up like 100 times and do it. And that kind of goes down to like, I fucking want to see that in the world. Like it's a piece of art. I want to see that. I'm driven by it. And I want to make it happen. So I see a lot of times people get excited in the idea fantasy. Like just in the idea world, it's so fun. They don't want to ever leave it, because once you leave that world, you're now in the real world where it's kind of very cool to say, hey, I have this cool idea for a podcast. Oh my God, it's so cool because nobody can reject it, versus actually building it out. And then, because then somebody can reject it, somebody can say, oh, we don't want to listen to this garbage. So I think a lot of times I see like, I don't know, is this rebel mindset maybe because I grew up in India and then coming here to the country as an immigrant, you just have like this different way of looking at things. You don't take everything for granted. You kind of like realize like, oh my God, how rare this opportunity is, or how rare is it even in the first place to get an access to someone. So if someone teaches me, hey, this is how you got to do the podcasting, then I owe it to them to actually fucking ship something. And then I've started so many projects and quit so many projects halfway, man, that I have a very bad track record. So I remember that with Design MBA, I promised myself that I would record 101 episodes before I stop. Now, to be honest, I did record 90 episodes or 95 or something. Then I stopped and pivoted to Sneak Peek. But I set a goal, and then I said, look, once I hit this goal, then I'm free to quit. Like I can walk out with my head held high. So, but then I also know like I have a lot of cousins and stuff that get the validation from like I have a younger brother, man. So he's like, I don't want to do all this like hustle like you. I want to get the degree from an Ivy League college, which he did. And he's like, I want the degree to speak for itself, which is okay too. Like he's willing to put in the 200,000, whatever it takes to do an MBA. And then he wants a degree to speak for itself. Like, hey, I've got a Harvard business degree. I want to apply for the design manager job at this FANG company. I'm more of like, I'm not going to pay that money, which means I have to hustle more on the side and make a compelling case.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's wrong or right, but I just think that, I don't know, man, like you have to surround yourself with people who do this to keep you motivated.
No, I love that, dude. I love the idea of making a promise to yourself, because like for me, at least, like one of the things when I started the show, I had a very, very much smaller goal than you, was to do 10 episodes. So I wanted to do 10 episodes. And I got into the rhythm and just sort of doing it, and I don't know, somehow I ended up with like 100 and something. But it's one of those things, man, like I didn't want to let myself down more than anything else. Like I promised this to myself. And then also too, like, I don't know if you ever made the commitment out loud, but like I actually posted, I think on LinkedIn or something, that I was going to do the show and I was going to do X amount of episodes. And that was like my thing. And, I didn't want to like let all these other people down that I promised you, which is similar to what you were talking about with like some of your mentors said, I want to do this to kind of like to ship something so that I'm not letting them down. And that was something like for me that kind of helped us kind of keep me honest a little bit. I don't know if you have any other thoughts with that, but that was for me at least, like just putting it out there, saying I'm going to do it kind of got me to want to keep doing it. So I didn't like, look like a dumbass or something.
I think there's two nuances to it. When I started Design MBA, it barely, like I would say Design MBA was, if you look at the metrics perspective compared to Sneak Peek, you would say that, yeah, Design MBA was a failed experiment. Like if you just look at the metrics. And one thing I realized like a lot about like creating art as an artist, or even the craft, is like you have to like create so many pieces of work to just realize how to make the few pieces of work that take off. Even though on paper, in terms of metrics, Design MBA was a failed experiment, but it kind of like set the foundation for Sneak Peek, which did end up going like hitting like that content audience, like fit, going viral. So that's like part of like one of that, like you have to be like patient and crazy enough to pursue an idea. So, and for me, that was an internal commitment. Like I said, like 101 episodes, I kept saying it. Publicly, I would post it. And then, yeah, like even if I had stopped halfway, man, I don't think anybody would have like really cared. Or maybe one person would have been like, hey, or like you, like, hey, man, where's the next episode going to come? But what I realized is that there's something called the content audience fit, like when you create content. So now with Sneak Peek, dude, like I get so many comments, so many emails and stuff that even when I feel like a downward spiral or just unproductivity, that kind of keeps me going. I think for a lot of people, when they first like are like, hey, I'm gonna launch a design publication, and I'm not gonna name any names, but I get a lot of design managers, design leaders message me like, yo, I want to start a newsletter. I want to start creating more content like you. And I think they instantly from day one want virality. They want their piece to be like shared. I'm like, why? Like, yes, you have a lot of like insight into that, but you haven't learned the art of packaging. You haven't put in the reps. So they directly want to jump into that, which is not fair. So I think that's also another issue. But the second thing is, if you're willing to put in the reps, man, when you create some piece of like content out there that hits a nerve, then it's much easier. So that's kind of more about like finding the content audience fit. Like, what is it that you can share that really resonates it with it? Because then, even if you don't have internal discipline, man, like this thing will keep going. And then from personal experience, what I'll tell you is like because of Sneak Peek, like I've got sponsorships from like Figma, Marvin, Framer. And a lot of this was just because like it was like in a way inbound, like in the sense that I was putting out this content, creating this, the bias to action you talked about. And my belief is that you are creating this interview with me, right? You have no fucking idea who's going to watch it. I have no fucking idea who's going to watch it. But it's like this like automated piece of like content, if you think about a piece of code in some way that's going out in the ether and doing publicity and marketing for us when we sleep.
Right.
And to me, some piece of content reached somebody in those teams and they're like, hey, we want to partner with you. So to me, that's the biggest thing I see today is like why you should keep going more than anything is when you believe that, like, look, if I keep this piece of content thing going up, there could be a VP of design somewhere like that is seeing it. Like I've had like some one-on-ones with like the VP of designs at like some really big companies and they just did it because they know who I am. They've seen my piece of content. And I just wanted to ask them a bunch of questions. Like, for example, I wanted to know how the compensation work at their level compared to IC level. So it's like, it's very weird to just message a VP of design and be like, yo, what's your comp at? Like, how does that work? Right? Like, like, you know what I mean? Like, but I was just curious about how does it work at my level and your level versus there. So being able to create content lets you unlock those doors.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, dude. So, this is obviously like the people listening, they're not here to necessarily learn all about content, but I think there's tons of takeaways when it comes to just learning and growing and improving how you do things. And what I've seen and I've experienced a lot of the same things that you're talking about, but when it comes to growth, I wonder like what is it about like most people that they get stuck in just sort of research mode where like, I want to start a newsletter or I want to do a thing. I want a career shift, and they'll just research. They'll just read a bunch of newsletters. They'll watch a bunch of videos. They'll read a bunch of books, and they never actually do it. And I'm curious, like from your perspective, like from your experience, and then also a lot of the other people that you've interviewed too. I'm curious, like what do you feel is the difference, and why does some people get stuck in research mode, but then others just sort of like kick it into high gear and start doing it? Is it that feedback loop, like you mentioned, like getting some kind of like positive reinforcement, and some people never see it, and so they never start. But I'm curious, like, what do you feel like you have a sense for like what some people kicks them into that high gear, and others just get stuck?
I don't know. Like I remember it was 2024, and I got feedback from like a manager that hey, your Figma skills are not up to par. Like given that you're at a staff level, and like there's so many updates coming up, you need to be up to date. And on the team I was working with, like there was like two other people like Steve and Michael, and they had like really, really rad, like the things they could do with Figma. It just made me like feel like insecure in my own craft. And now, but here's the messed up part about it. When you kind of like see somebody else that like a friend, like they're my team member. So I was like, yeah, whatever. I can always message Steve and Michael, and I would do that, and they would just send me some tutorials to watch. But I never like got the bias. So I was like, I knew I had to do it, but I was just like just not doing anything because I knew they were friends. So I was like, well, I'm not competing with them. They're friends. I knew I had to level up my skills to kind of grow in my career. And then one day me and Steve are like just walking to Whole Foods, and he's like, dude, like, and I just pitched him this idea, like, dude, what if like I started this concept of like, I didn't even know I was going to call it Sneak Peek, but like, I was like, I have this concept. What if I interview some people and We could see their Figma files and best practices. Like, what do you think about that idea? And I remember him saying to me, like, dude, regardless if the idea flops or succeeds, I will promise you this, your Figma skills will improve. I didn't even think about it because like the whole time I was just thinking from the content lens. But then, even though this was a content experiment and stuff, and I kind of like launched it, what happened was like, dude, like I remember like one designer I interviewed on Sneak Peek, he now works at OpenAI. When I saw his Figma files and what he was doing, I fucking legit felt like I'm the shit. Like I am so bad. Like I suck. Because like, you know what happens is like when you just work in your company and there's all four walls and your own design teams, like even if you're at par with them, you're okay. But now I was interviewing the top designers in Silicon Valley. Some of them had worked at Slack. Some of them had worked at like, Hex and so many other companies. And when you see the level at which they're operating, it was like, what the fuck is going on? I'll give you another example. Like and I would have a lot of these moments. Like I remember I was interviewing Tammy from Figma design team, and dude, like, okay, this is what like base level like engineering handoff looks like. Like some designer, like, and I would do this. I would have like my Figma file page. I would share that Figma file with the eng team, and then like some marked ready for dev, and that's it. What Tammy did was, dude, she had a whole presentation as part of the handoff where what is this project about? What is the stuff you're changing? Specifically in code, what are stuff that's going to be impacted? Like this is a designer telling an engineer, like all the things that are going to be changed, the color codes, like going above and beyond, not just doing a typical like sharing a link. And I asked her, like, how the heck do you get time? Like I told her, like the level at which you're operating at Figma, like any other team, you could walk in as a principal level designer. Like this is just like nuts. And you know what I realized? A lot of people commented on it like, oh, we don't have time. We're a startup. We're a big team. We have so many projects. But what I realized is that everyone that I interviewed, Jeremy, they gave a fuck about the craft. They gave a fuck, not because of promotion. They gave a fuck because it was their work. No one told them to do, not a single one, their manager told them that you got to organize your Figma files so cleanly. Everything's got to be documented this way. Everything you got to go above and beyond. No one told them to use all these pro tips, set up all these design systems in Figma. They just did it because they gave a fuck about it. And at that point, I realized like that opened my eye, like you got to give a fuck. And I think for a lot of designers, they don't have exposure to other teams in the sense that like they just see what's going on in their team. And then that becomes the bar for excellence. And I'm not talking about like looking at a new Apple product and getting inspired by it, but I'm saying like literally getting into the file, seeing them designed. And that's what I got to see with Sneak Peek. And when I saw that, it was like a career shock. I was like, I realized I don't think I could get a job at any of those companies at this level that I was at. Like when I saw all of them operate the way they did, it was like a wake-up call like, hey, I need to continue this lifelong learning journey because if I don't, I'm going to go stale and I'm going to be left behind. And I think forever, I'm just going to make peace with who I am. My skills are going to atrophy. So then it was like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this, some format or the other, where I get to see some designer, either in Silicon Valley or some other company, some different industry, and just see what they're doing. And before it was Figma files, now I'm doing it more with AI. And it's the same shocking moment that I'm getting. Like I am seeing designers literally shipping PRs with Cursor and all these different AI tools. And you're like, God damn, this is the future.
Yeah, dude. So, I was about to ask you the question, like, what do you think sets some of those designers and the people that you've interviewed, at least, from the people who grow and the people who plateau? But it sounds like you just answered it for me because you're psychic or something, but they give a fuck. Like they care, right? And I don't know. There's no question here now because, but maybe we could just riff on that and talk a little bit about it. But I love that concept though, of like, nobody told them to do it. Nobody was like, you're going to get fired if you don't. It was just, I care. I care about my work. I care about, the end result. I care about like users because if I don't do this correctly and the engineers, screw it up, the end users are going to have a shitty time. But then I think there's also a level of caring about the people you work with. We talk about empathy for users all the time. I think this is a really great example of like, I don't think these people were doing it to just show off. I think a lot of them were doing it because like, they cared. They wanted to provide the engineers with the right context so the engineers didn't have to ask a bunch of questions or feel lost. And it's funny. It reminds me of this anecdote I talk about a lot, but I used to work in this giant company And we had a gigantic software team, dude, like 70 or 80 engineers on this one product. I had a bunch of designers in Europe and in California, New Orleans, where I was living. And I overheard these engineers arguing over lunch. Went back when we were in an office and we had break rooms and shit. But they were arguing about like something in the app. I can't remember exactly what it was. But one of them was like, no, the feature's supposed to do this. And the other was like, no, the feature's supposed to do this. And I was like, you guys are both wrong. Like, neither one of you are correct. You clearly don't understand what we're even building. And so, part of it, like, I kind of resonate a lot with that too, because like, if I just send like, here's the thing, here's some components and I turn it on dev mode and the engineer gets it, they're going to interpret that through their own lens, through their own bias, through their own understanding of the thing. And they're going to say, well, not because they're bad engineers, because they're trying to do their job. They probably have a limited amount of time and effort or a limited amount of time and resources to do it. And so they're going to figure out how to do it as easy as possible for them because that's what engineers do. Nothing wrong with that. And it might be wrong. And chances are good it probably will be because they clearly might not have the understanding and the context that you do. And, you could leave that up to chance or you could give a shit. And I guarantee you, just like, those engineers are going to understand that they're going to appreciate you. They're going to appreciate your handoffs. And they're going to come to expect that. And then the great thing about that too, and maybe this is something you could even speak to a little bit, but that culture, you're changing the culture. You're changing the culture of how developers and designers work together. You're changing the culture of, how there is the symmetry between the two. And it's not just throwing over the fence, hope it works, and then yell at them later because it was 10 pixels off or something. And I love that idea though. And like it just the craft, it brings everybody else up. I don't know if that's something that you've spoken to people about, but I like to think that would happen. I don't know.
They're entrepreneurs without naming any teams or companies and stuff, or any people to protect the guilty. But I've seen designers haggling like, oh my God, in this promo cycle, I didn't get from senior to staff or principal, whatever the next thing they want. But with the designers I interviewed on Sneak Peek, I noticed that it's not like they were oblivious about promotion cycle, but they just cared a lot about the craft and they would share these best practices across the company that automatically got them the promotion or the next thing they were looking at, the next role, whatever that next thing was for them. And I think when I spoke to a lot of design leaders, they want this kind of like entrepreneurs. They're kind of like entrepreneurs, but within the organization walls where an entrepreneur is basically someone that just gives a fuck about something that the rest of the world doesn't and they create a better product and all that stuff. But like, what if you could have somebody like that within the org that gives a damn about it? So in your entire team, maybe no one gives a shit about Figma file hygiene. Nobody gives a shit about like how we can use AI as part of the design process. But there's got to be somebody that gives a shit. That's your entrepreneur. And then they're doing it because they're driven by it. They care. They give a fuck. And that's also the reason why they're going to get the exceeds rating. That's the reason why they're going to be like promoted. But that wasn't why they were like doing it. Now, the other challenge is for a lot of people, which is okay, the UX design job is a way to pay the bills. The company they're working at, it's not like rocket science. It's not like, oh, this thing I'm working on has 1 billion users, right? In that kind of setting, the default norm can be very like baseline. You're like, okay, well, this is okay. I don't have to go above and beyond. This is okay. The thing that I see is that if you're a designer in one of those situations, but you're not talking to anyone outside or getting mentorship or somehow seeing what's best out there, then to me, that's like a concerning thing because they're not keeping up. They're not updating their skills and they're just going to be plateaued there. So that's the reason why I see what's going wrong with this. Like, I don't see these people like attending like enough design meetups, but like, I'm not saying just go to config once a year. If you're going to config, are you actually going to a designer at Spotify and saying like, hey, I work at so-and-so company. I saw your talk on stage. Like, can I show you my Figma file organization? Can you give me tips on it? Can you critique it? Or a lot of these designers at these well-known companies, they offer mentoring sessions, paid ones. Are they going there and be like, can you rip apart my design? Can you honestly tell me, like, with this current level of skills, current portfolio, would I get a job in your team? No one's doing that, man.
So a couple of things I want to like go back, just kind of call out that you mentioned, and I think this is really important. The people that you interviewed, one of the things you said you noticed was like they aren't necessarily hounding their bosses for promotions, but they're the ones getting the promotions. And they go out of their way, right? Like to not only learn new things, share new things. And this is, I think, the really critical piece. And it's very similar to what you have done, where you could have just done a lot of mentor sessions with a bunch of these people in private and learned Figma and been done with it, but you're sharing it, right? And, a lot of these other people, they will learn best practices, then they will do a lunch and learn, or they'll do a talk and they will share that with their team. And it's it's just like somewhat altruistic, I guess, in a way. I mean, obviously you're doing it for money and stuff, but like, there's something to be said about that. It's like not keeping these insights and things to yourself. And, I do this talk called the UX Uncertainty Principle. And one of the main takeaways from the talk that I try to really hound is like information is our cheat code. It makes our job easier across the board. Information. And it's just getting information is only half of it. It's the sharing information that makes your job so much easier because you're not the only one giving a shit anymore, right? You really care about Figma hygiene and naming your layers or organizing your files in certain ways. If you're not sharing that with your team, every other file you pick up is going to be a total shit show. And it's going to drive you crazy. And it's going to be so much harder to like onboard or pick up a new project when you're, taking over from the designer. But if you go out and share it, you make your job easier because now everyone in your team is sharing those same layouts and templates and like the file structure is the same and everything else, naming conventions, whatever. Like you go to find a file on your share drive and it's like, look at that. It's named the same way. I know what I'm looking for. Like, I think that's like such a big part. It's like, I think people think it's just so much work, but it benefits you in the long run because it makes your job easier and it makes everyone else's job easier. And who's going to get promoted, right? The people who are helping the team grow, not just the people who got better than they were last cycle, the people who also brought everyone along with them. I think that's like such an important piece to this. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, but like that was just such a huge insight that I just thought was worth calling out.
For a lot of like, if you look at the responsibilities of a staff designer or like a lead designer or principal level designer, one of the key competencies in any of the company job boards you will see in the specifications they have for that title, it's to up-level the whole team. So you could look at it as like, oh, I'm doing this because I want to get promoted, or is it a requirement for my job to up-level everybody else? But the designers I interviewed, like they did it because they just love teaching. Like I love education at heart. I love teaching people. It's just like a joy you get from it. So like for me, even if I did a brown bag or I did some kind of like talk on this is how someone's doing it, I couldn't give a shit if okay, I got to tell you a story. Oh my God.
Tell me a story. I want to hear it.
So when I was 24, when I was just starting out my career, I got to spend time at the time with this VP of design, Andrea Sutton, and one of the most amazing ladies or design leaders I've had the chance to work with. So she had this, like at that time was very radical, right? Like all this design sprint and working in that format. So she was trying to pioneer that across the company. It was a giant telecom company. And somebody in the product side stole her idea and claimed all the credit for it, got recognition in the company. So one day I went to her and I was like, don't you feel like shit? Like this, like, fucker stole all your idea and got all the credit in the company and stuff. She sat me down and said, like, Jay, here's the most important thing I want you to remember. At the end of the day, my boss, which was like, I think the CXO or something, knew that Andrea was the one behind the idea. That's what matters.
That's it, dude.
That's
I
it.
love that.
And if this guy stealing the idea is the only way for us to like have the product team use modern like design way to work, why not? Who cares? So at that point, I stopped chasing like credit internally on a team. And it's kind of like counterintuitive. It's like when you're dating someone, you stop chasing them, they kind of become even more attracted to you. So it's like when you stop giving a fuck about all this like recognition and stuff, it's like suddenly they get even more like, oh my God, wow, we should give you more opportunity. We should give you this. And it's like so funny. Like I never chased any of the recognition in any of the day jobs I've had, partly because I was getting all of that on like the social media content I create. So
you get your fix somewhere else.
In a weird way, like anytime there was a presentation, I would be like, no, I don't want to do it. Like have Jeremy do it, have so-and-so do it. And they found like, oh my God, you're a team player. Like you, just like, I don't give a shit. I already got all the recognition I wanted. So that worked out really well. But I think a lot of people are looking at it from the promo angle only, which is why they're not sharing it or it becomes like a chore.
Yeah, I just love that idea though of like just being unselfish, being selfless with your information, sharing it. Again, like most people are not going to be out there like making podcasts or YouTube videos or anything like that. But I think like doing a talk, like doing a presentation, a lunch and learn, sharing stuff that you've learned. Like, hey, look, this really cool stuff that I have done, I found it to be incredibly helpful for my workflow. Maybe you could find it helpful too. And maybe all of us can use this similar thing and make all of our jobs easier, and we can do things faster, move faster, ship more stuff, more cool shit, better stuff, whatever. I think that's such a yeah, man, for me, like that's just a great insight. And I don't know, man, worth like screaming from the rooftops, because I feel like so many people are just so selfish. They'll learn a thing, they'll just kind of covet it. Be like, well, that's my idea. That's my idea. And I love your example, your anecdote there about just like, as long as my boss knows that. But the other thing interesting here too is something else I hear designers say all the time is, my designs are going to speak for themselves. And, you cannot expect your boss to, one, if you're lucky enough to have a design boss. I know there's a lot of people on the design teams or UX designers, product designers, whatever. Their boss is like a product manager. Maybe their boss is like an engineering director or something. Not every org is going to be high maturity and have it set up the way we want it to. And so if you're not like actively going out and like advocating for yourself, you're going to get stuck. This is like, again, like very similar concept.
I got another story right there.
Yeah, let me hear it.
That's the Shopify. So I had reached out to the chief design officer at Shopify. So I recorded an interview with them on Sneak Peek on how they're using AI. So I reached out to the CDO, Carl, there, and so we started talking over email, and then he's like, okay, what kind of guest do you want on Sneak Peek from my team? Because Shopify has hundreds of designers. So I was very specific that I want to interview someone that can show the entire AI design process at Shopify. Someone very heavily on AI, someone, like just in the weed of it, like AI tooling and stuff. Now, normally, to give you context, Jeremy, when I kind of talk with a VP of design to interview their team on Sneak Peek, they'll give me a list of like 3-4 designers, and I have to pick. Here, his response was, well, that's probably who you're looking for is Kasdan. Like, he was so specific about it. And I'm not surprised, because Kasdan, like you said, has been advocating for himself. And what I mean by that is not like promoting, but it's more of like, whenever he learns something new with like Cursor or any of the new AI tools, he kind of like builds his own plugins, shares that with the rest of the Shopify design team. And then along the way, everybody else finds it valuable. So when you do that, the chief design officer, the VP of design, whoever, they're going to notice. It's not in a vacuum. I think this is just an example I wanted to share with your listeners, that if any of you watching this episode today take up Jeremy on his challenge and start doing internal learning sessions on your team, share whatever you know. Maybe you're good at illustration and nothing to do with AI. Share that shit. Maybe you're good with, like Jeremy, like you're a voice coach, or maybe you're good with voice, and maybe you can mentor other designers on public speaking. Just offer it like, hey, I'm Jeremy, new to the team or whatever. Hey, folks, Jeremy here again. Just wanted to offer like some office hours like throughout the week. If you want to get better at like public speaking, I'm more than happy to do a one-on-one with you. Something as simple as that.
I love that, dude. Yeah, that's something I think most people like. You mentioned entrepreneur before, and I think a lot of people probably have never even heard that word. But I think that's such an important thing. Like when we think about entrepreneurial mindset, like people who, one, give a shit, just like you said, but then have the audacity to actually go out and do it and not wait for someone to like hand them permission, is so rare in most companies, especially large, internal, monolithic, giant companies that, Fortune 500 companies, which, let's face it, dude, there are a ton of designers at places like P&G, Kroger, like all these big, these are not like design forward. They're not the first thing you think of when you think of product designers, but they've got hundreds and hundreds of product designers, almost said thousands. I don't think they have thousands, but they've got like 100 product designers. And nobody at Kroger is going to be like, we need to do this thing and get better at our craft. You know what I mean? Like at least the high level executive, maybe a design executive, if they even have one, I'm not even sure if they do. But, you've got to go out and just do it and start sharing those things, because, most of us don't work at FANG companies. Most people listening today do not work at a fancy, sexy FANG tech company. They work at these unsexy other places that like probably low design maturity. And if you want to change it, like this is something I advocate all the time, dude. It's like you have so much control, so much more control than you actually think on how, if not the larger org works, but at least your core team. And I love that you're calling this out, this idea of an entrepreneur, because this is something like so many teams I feel like just need one person, just somebody to just prod them a little bit.
So you know what's going to happen? The design executive at Kroger gives a fuck about all this stuff. But obviously, they have a large part of their job is also like talking with other stakeholders, other C-level execs, getting design a seat at the tables. There's a lot of things. They cannot just like focus only on the craft. There's other responsibilities they have. Now here, if someone's just a designer, junior one, senior, doesn't matter, and they become proactive, dude, I kid you not, I can totally see them becoming a director like in year and a half from literally a junior one, because they will probably get back-to-back promotions because nobody else on the team gives a shit to share all this. Nobody is taking charge. I think the biggest problem I've seen is not with people, but it's the company, the culture, maybe the mindset of the people is they want permission. Like, oh, Jeremy's my boss. When Jeremy comes to me and emails me like, here you go, Jay, here's your blessings. Here's your blessings to do a talk on this. Or sometimes they give a lot of fuck about, oh, what is this other designer? What is she going to think about me because I'm giving a talk? They're going to think I'm like trying to be in the limelight. I'm trying to like I've been called a brown noser a lot, like, but I just don't give a shit, man. I'm just more like, I'm going to do it because it's the right thing to do. It's up leveling everybody. And there's something about, we talk, like me and you focus more on the external brand as content creators, like, but there's something about this concept of like internal brand. This is something I learned from Design MBA guest. And at the time she was working at Meta. And I think the learning I got from her is like, when you think about like advancing your career at a company like Meta, what is the first thing that comes to people's mind when they think about your name? So if there's nothing, that's a wrong answer. That means you're not doing a good enough job of doing in building an internal brand.
Yeah.
Like if Jeremy's name comes up at Meta, what the fuck is he doing? Like, we don't know. He reports on so-and-so's team. That's not a good answer.
Right.
That means you've not been advocating for yourself. That means that you've not been, so, and usually these big companies, man, they have like lunch and learns.
Mm-hmm.
They have like all hands product team where anybody can come and share some learnings. Anybody can come and share some AI insights, anything. Like the floor is open. But most of the designers, Jeremy, they're fucking shit scared. And you know what they're shit scared of? Like, oh, what if this goes wrong?
Yeah.
They're more worried about the harm it could do to their career more than if I gave a 5-minute talk on the new design that I just shipped in front of all these product execs, all the engineering leaders, they're going to know who I am. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like,
I love it.
So I think more on the upside rather than kind of like the downside. So
yeah. I love that. I love like the bias for action. Here's a question I want to like sort of pivot to and talk a little bit about how, because you've got a lot of ideas and a lot of people, they might have a lot of ideas. We're saying, go do. But here's something to think about is like, when do you stop? Because you could burn yourself out pretty quick. Every idea you have, like you said, is not going to always work out. Sometimes you're going to fail. I'm just curious, like all these people, entrepreneurs, people at work wanting to go do a bunch of things, how do they balance that sort of bias for action with the very real possibility of just picking up and doing way too much?
Oh, man. So this is where I'm so glad I did the Design MBA podcast before Sneak Peek. Because when I did the Design MBA, I was talking to design entrepreneurs, like folks launching their courses, $1 million design courses, folks like building their own design brand, folks like design founders and stuff. So the questions are more about like exactly what you're asking me. And there's no one right answer, man. I think that's what I realized. Like in my specific case, when to know, like when to stop or when to pivot is like my personal thing is when I've got enough from it. Like I think with Design MBA, I had a guest, a friend, Avinav, and he's like, bro, like what the fuck? Like he's very blunt for like giving his advice. And he's the one who kind of like got me to like start my YouTube channel, be more active on X. He's like, dude, you're doing the guest a disservice. By creating content that doesn't get views, like you're doing them a disservice. Like even though if you don't give a shit, you're like, oh, I'm just talking to this CEO and getting them on the show. But they're going to look back at this video and like, oh, it only got 500 views. Like what a waste of time. So he was very vocal about me, like for months, he like shut down like Design MBA. And I was like, no, I made a commitment that I should only do 101 episodes and all that shit. So I think what I'm trying to get at is having people that you look up to, like trusted confidants in your journey, whether it's a design manager at some other company or someone that you look up to, ideally outside the company, outside, like, so there's no conflict of interest, that can tell you like, hey, I think it's time for you to move on. Because like, if you just rely on yourself, man, it's very hard because I was so attached to it. It was my baby.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So that's like one thing I have is like, I have a lot of counsel of a lot of people that I've met. So whenever I get stuck, I could message you, I could message somebody else and be like, I'm kind of stuck here. Do you think it makes sense for me to kind of keep going? Like, what do you think? So that's one thing. Now, applying this within the organizational context, when you're building your internal brand at the company, you cannot have 100 different ideas because not only are you going to get burned out, but what is it that you're going to get people to remember you by? So for me, internally, I became the guy that, okay, Jay's the guy that shares all these Figma best practices and stuff internally in the company, comes up with new ways, new rituals, new organization stuff. So that became my thing. That was sustainable enough for me to keep building trust with my head of design. Now, until I have not done that and I do like 5 other things and I sign up for it, like it's kind of like I didn't deliver on it. And then my track record becomes like, yeah, Jay's someone who signs up and comes up with all these rad ideas, but I don't think we've seen anything that he's going to execute on. So I think my advice would be, depending on when they join the company or whenever they start to become entrepreneurs, maybe for the first 6 months, limit to like only 1 or 2 ideas, see them to completion or something. Like it doesn't have to be implemented, but at least something where it's like, okay, we presented it to the leadership. They're going to think on it. Now you can move on to something else. So now you create a track record in front of your design executives. They're like, okay, you are someone that picks up an idea and is someone that has the tenacity, like capacity and perseverance to see it through. I think that's very, very important. And what would happen because of this is whenever in the future there's like high profile projects, profiles with very high ambiguity, which usually end up being the high profile projects, you will get selected for it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because dude, I can't tell you like how many people I've worked with, like leaders over the years that were like the idea guy. Oh, they got so many great ideas. And you're like, what have they done? They've never done anything, never executed. They've never actually seen any of it through. And I think that's such an important thing to think about because you know, thinking back to your question, you're like, what is that person known for? You know, it could be good. It could also be very bad. It's one of those things like people are like, and we think about brand, you know, like personal brand. Like this doesn't need to turn into a personal brand conversation, but like brand is there, whether you have cultivated it, whether you have designed it or not. You're either known for something that you want to be known for, or you're known for just something else that someone else decided you're known for it. And you know, I think this is such an important thing to think about it because, you know, being an entrepreneur, being an ideas person, trying to do these things, running a bunch of experiments, it's all very important. But, you know, obviously failing isn't necessarily bad, but if you are never successful in any things you do, you know, and you try to do things, you get sidetracked, you go on and move to the next thing, you never see anything all the way through to the end, you become known for those things. And, you know,
I was that guy.
Yeah.
That was the feedback I got when I was early in my career. The leadership was like, because like at that time I was a contractor trying to get converted full time. So the feedback from the contracting company was, hey, we talked to the VP of design. Here's the feedback for you. And he pulled out his notes like, Jay comes up with lots of ideas, but never sees them through. Like we gave him this task about creating this video. He never came back to it. Then we also gave him this like other presentation he was supposed to make. He said he was going to do it, but then we don't even know what the status is. So what was happening was that every new shiny idea, I was getting very excited and I wanted to do it all. So I think that was a very good learning curve for me to say like, hey, I already committed to these 3 ideas. I don't think I can take them on. And if I have to take them on, I would actually talk with my management and be like, look, I gave you my word. I was going to see these idea number 1 and 2, but now the product manager is asking me to work on idea number 3. Do I have your blessings to pause on idea 1 and 2 and then work on 3 so that they don't think that I'm abandoning them?
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting because this is like advocating. This is the idea of advocating for yourself. You could say, you know, oh, they know I've got 1,000 things. Like they know that, you know, obviously I can't do all of them. I'm going to have one of them like kind of move to the side. But, you know, that's such an important thing, dude, is like the advocating for yourself. It goes beyond just like, look at all the cool stuff I've done. It's also, you know, like, you've given me too much shit and I am going to fail at some of these if you don't help me out, take it off my plate or whatever. And a lot of people I've talked to, like crazy amounts of designers who are just like, well, yeah, you know, my boss is giving me all this stuff and I can't do it all. And I'm like, well, have you talked about it? We're like, well, they know I have all this stuff. I'm like, nobody knows. If they knew, they wouldn't be giving you extra crap. You know, they wouldn't be giving you more shit to do. So, you know, setting expectations, man. I mean, this is just such an important thing. I think like you just called out expectations, man. Expectations. It's part of advocating. It's part of like all this stuff that we're talking about, I think, is making sure that like you're able to complete the things that you want to do. It's not just about starting them, but like, can you finish them? Are you actually capable of doing them?
And then going back to, I just thought of another example. I just came to mind about giving a shit. Like recently a designer I interviewed, I think, from Webflow. He, before replying to the product team, he takes his entire, like he uses voice talk to AI rather than prompting or AI, like chatting.
Really? Okay.
And he basically would just like, let's say he wants to tell the product manager that, hey, the designs are not, this are the issues we're facing with the design. They're not going to be ready by Friday. They're going to be ready on Monday. Like there's like huge explanation of why that is. He will first send that to ChatGPT and then have ChatGPT be more concise with the reply. Then again, do one more iterations and then send it to the PM in a very succinct Slack message. Now, you don't have to do it. Like designer can just be like, I'm just going to vomit. But this is again where he himself feels like he has to improve his communication skills. So I think something else I also realized is I think a lot of designers just don't care about their communication skills. Like something I realized from interviewing all these designers is like they don't practice the public speaking skills or presenting to a large audience. They don't like focus on improving their written communication, whether it's email, Slack and stuff. So, but I think that has a huge impact long term. But it's just one of those things where like, hey, it's got me by so far, so why bother?
Dude, I love that. Well, this I do a lot of this stuff with like cognitive biases and things like that. And there's one that just sticks out to me and I think is probably something people see more often than not, especially in large organizations when it's easy to just be a number, but the halo effect and the horns effect, where the halo effect talks about, the way you're dressed and people judge a book by its cover. But I think in today's day and age, it's like, it's communicating. It's how do you present yourself? It's how well written are your emails? If your email is like poorly written and there's grammatical errors and typos and shit, someone's going to be like, this person's a goddamn idiot. It doesn't matter how smart you actually are. They're going to interpret it that way. Same with like, dude, like giving a shit, even as simple as like having fucking lights in your camera when you're on camera. Like I can't tell you how many times I've been in meetings with like people presenting designs to leadership in a dark room with the sun behind them in a window. They're like basically a black shadow. It's like find a better spot to present when you are presenting to like an executive. It's all part of.
Did you ever message them? I'm curious to know what they told you. If you ever like when you work with teams and because I mean, you being a podcaster, you obviously notice all these things, the microphone, the video and audio. I'm curious to know if you ever messaged any of them like, hey, just so you know, like this could be improved.
No, I don't, I don't tend to give like too much like unsolicited advice to especially coworkers, unless it was somebody on my team, that's different. Like someone I'm actually like a design lead or manager or whatever, then I would like, hey, this meeting, it could have gone better. But in those examples, like those were just like colleagues or people on other teams. I don't know. It wasn't my place. I don't know, dude. I mean, certain
yeah, I know, because it might feel like you're flexing.
Yeah.
Even though that's not your intention.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe like anonymous carrier pigeon to their house.
Dude, have you ever thought about that? Like, like now I'm just thinking about it. Like, I know you offer like a lot of other mentoring and a lot of other like things, mentorship services to listeners or other designers, but I think there's a lot to communication side that you could offer, which is, and these are all the nuances, which is like voice affectation. Like you have something about your voice that automatically makes the other person feel safe.
Really? Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I meant by the late night voice, right?
Yeah,
like, you just have that voice where if someone's watching, they're like, okay.
So some kind of like coaching service around that. Yeah. It's funny, dude. Like actually like part of my coaching that I do, like I try to actually like not do like job hunt kind of coaching. Cause I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck, I can't get a job. Like I can't tell you how to get a job, but like it's the softer skills of like leveling up. You feel stuck in your career. How do you level up? And one of the things I always talk about is like when you're presenting, dude, watch the tapes, record yourself. And just like a football team, watch the tapes, watch it back. It's painful. People hate listening to themselves. They hate the sound of their own voice, but I'm telling you, you will find so many things like, oh my God, I didn't even realize I pronounced that word that way. Or, the uptick in your voice, like everybody, like every sentence is a question, like that kind of stuff. Like people react to that and they're like, oh, well, you're questioning yourself. Why should I believe you? So like those kinds of things. Yeah, I should actually, I don't know. I should put something together, man. I don't know.
Okay. So here's the thing. You know how like experienced designers offer like paid design crits? Like you could just send them your portfolio and they would give you like a critique on it, send you a Loom video and charge like some money on it. Like I know people who do this, or like freelance designers who would do an audit of some website for the founder and give them like Loom video or like, here are things you can improve on. But what you could do is have a designer, no prep needed, come on the call, pull up any presentation, past work, current work, some random topic, present to you, and then 10 minutes in, you give them critique, honest critique. Like, for example, like, you're talking about like this, like the the audio video setup, like why you should give a shit. Like you'll point that out. Maybe they're speaking very fast. Maybe they are very nervous and they keep using or they keep meandering. There's all these things that, oh my God, man, like
I might do it. Oh, this is a brilliant advice. This is why I had you on, dude. I'm learning so much. This is why I keep doing the show. Learn so much shit. But no, that's a brilliant advice.
You could do it with friends or internal company or colleagues or your already current coworkers, and then have screenshots of that, like that setup or Zoom or something. Then that becomes a testimonial or like placeholder for future, like VIP listeners, like a test pilot would be any of like the top 10 listeners or whoever shares this episode or something, I don't know, like gets to like have like 15, 20 minutes with like Jeremy where they get like feedback on their communication style. And it's everything. It's, by the way, it's not just like speaking to them, but when they communicate with you from the start, first touch point, the email messaging, like you're also like very like upbeat over email. I noticed that. Like, you're not very corporate, very professional. You're like, yo, do you like, it's like, wow, this is fun. This is not like, hey, Jayneil, best Jeremy, best regards. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
So it can also be feedback on that too, like how they were when they were communicating with you, async.
Yeah, dude, I love that. Well, like, I might do that, man. We'll talk offline. I might get into some of this stuff. All right, dude. So we have had you on for quite a while now. It's been over an hour. This is a long time. This is actually longer than most of my guests, but I've had a blast. And it's funny, nobody knows this, but I created a conversation guide with a bunch of questions and a bunch of topics. I think I got through like a third of it. There's so much more that like I wanted to get into, but we'll have to save it for another day. Before we get out of here, I do want to ask you though, what is one thing that you think people could start doing today to just start acting and just stop researching? What is that one thing you want everybody out there to start doing today?
There's level 1 and level 2. So level 1 would be in whatever company you're working at right now, sign up for some kind of show and tell. It can be your design team. It can be even the entire org. It can be entire company, whatever you feel comfortable with. And it can be even a happy hour. If your team has virtual happy hours or they have like whatever, like casual things, sign up for that. And bare minimum, whatever you're good at. Like it could be like, oh, I have a background in lettering. Share best tips on that. Even if that's nothing to do with the work you're doing right now, share that. Maybe you are an audio editor. Cool. Maybe it has nothing to do with the product design work you're doing. Share those best practices because it will get you in the mindset of like, all right, I am sharing the stuff that's stored in my head and is benefiting other people. That's level 1. Level 2 is once you do that, then maybe make a LinkedIn post and be like, hey, I'm using this AI tool in my design process. This is some of the benefits I've got from it. Just posting it in case somebody else might find it valuable. That's level 2. And then level 3 would be once you've got enough reps from level 1 and level 2, level 3 would be like, let me now apply for some design conferences and condense all these learnings and share that with the design community.
I love that. Yeah, that's so smart too. Like, because I think this is thinking about just like the growth mindset and back to where we started, where people just sort of, they research and they never actually do. I think often what I've seen is people set like incredibly lofty goals, like shoot for the stars. Like, I'm going to do the most amazing thing in the world, but you're never going to get there right out the box. And the chances of you doing that the first time, probably really low. Start small, dude. Like just share something with your core team, Slack message, like you said, whatever, then go to the next level, then the next level, then the next level, and the next level. And then, years later, you're speaking at like, international conferences or something with like 1,000 people in front of you. So don't expect that 1,000-person conference to be your first step, And I think that's where like, when I think about this kind of stuff, like so many people, they have these amazing ideas, but they try to make it like the Super Bowl of their idea. Start off with like the Pee-wee football, like at your local playground, and go from there. And then eventually, you'll get to the Super Bowl. But I think so many people just, they want to get to the Super Bowl first, and then they're mad when they don't get to the Super Bowl. But like,
I think they're just scared of like doing the thing, which is why they'll be like, oh, what audio gear should I get? And they'll be like, what is the best audio equipment I can get for podcasting? I still use a $79 podcast microphone that I started my journey out. I haven't changed it. I mean, I could get the more fancier $500, $1,000 one, but I don't need it. So I think a lot of times, like, it's much easier to like keep on researching because then you're procrastinating. And designers, to some degree are procrastinators. So it's much easier to do that. So they'll keep asking me or you even questions about what video gear should I get? What should I do? Oh, I'm not going to record that first video or take part in the like show and tell because I don't have that like 4K video camera. I don't have the HD microphone, but I don't think that's needed. And your first version, your first attempt should be shit. And if it's not, then that just means that they're probably like waiting too long.
I love that. Yeah, for sure. I love that, dude. Yeah, just like you don't need the, like what is I remember this like a golfer or somebody or something. I can't remember who said this, but like, you get the most amazing tools in the world. You can get the most amazing golf clubs, or the most amazing chef's knives or pots and pans. You want to be a chef and all that shit. If you just don't even know what the fuck you're doing to begin with, because you never even started, you could have the most amazing set of golf clubs in the world. You're never gonna be Tiger Woods. It doesn't matter. So, like I love that. Like I wish I could remember who said that. But anyway, the tools don't matter. Like the fancy shit doesn't matter. If you're like waiting for that stuff and that's your excuse to start, you're wasting your time and you're never going to go anywhere. All right. I love this. Jay, I've got a few questions I like to ask all my guests to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. First thing that comes to your mind, don't have to think too long about it. What is your favorite non-design book?
Autobiography of a Yogi. That's number one. That one changed my life. Another one is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Third one that comes to mind, 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. It's kind of helped me a lot deal with toxic people, navigate very, very tricky situations with historic examples. So these are like, had nothing to do with design, but those are some ones that come to mind that actually had a huge impact on my life.
I love that, dude. Yeah, 48 Laws of Power is one I've had a couple of people mention. And like, I feel like, for me at least, when I'm dealing with like software in general, like it's inherently complex. There are people and systems and everything else you have to deal with to like make that stuff happen. 48 Laws of Power is so important, especially like designers do. We talk about like seat at the table. I want to sit at the table. Like if you don't understand these things, like you're never going to get
another book, by the way, that's less famous, 33 Strategies of War. Personally, between 48 Laws of Power is more famous, but between 48 Laws of Power, same author, 33 Strategies of War, I like the second one more.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I love that. Is it just about like navigating the...
Like, for example, like one of the advice in the book or one whole chapter is like, let's say you're working with a tricky product manager as a designer, right? So, when you're presenting in front of leadership, like let them present. Let them take the credit. Don't try to like hoggle all the limelight in front of them. So it gives you a lot of historical examples like back in the day when like you were an advisor to the king. You don't want to outshine the king. You want to let them take the credit, even though you did a lot of the work. So it kind of like just like talks about all these things where like as a designer, you could be like, okay, I'm walking into this room. Everyone's got a lot of egos. So I need to like play to that to get this design implemented.
Yeah, think about the end result. I think a lot of times we get incredibly fixated on the control of it all. But at the end of the day, do you get what you want? Does the thing ship? Did it ship the way you designed it? And if you can't, as a designer, if you can't make that happen, it doesn't matter like how good any of the other crap was. I think that is so important. All right, next up, what is your favorite non-design podcast? Do you even listen to podcasts? You even have time for podcasts, all the stuff you got going on?
This is so crazy being a podcaster or used to be a podcaster. Like I didn't listen to many other podcasts. It's so weird, but the ones that I do listen to time would be, again, more focused. They're not design focused, but they're more focused on the creator economy. So the one that I would listen to, it would be from Jay Klaus. It would be Creator Science. So that one I listen to. But beyond that, don't really listen to much podcasts anymore. What I do is instead watch more like YouTube content. And essentially what I'm there doing is it's specifically not design related. But what I'm trying to focus on is like, what is the editing style they have? What is the thumbnail? Like, how are they designing the thumbnail to grab attention? So it'll be a lot of like Bollywood movie trailers, a lot of like not related to design at all. But what I'm trying to do is someone did a good job of design in this field, not related to design, and grab my attention.
I love that. No, I used to do advertising and graphic design a long time ago. There's so much inspiration just out in the world from book covers or anywhere, it doesn't matter, that can inspire you in your own, field, whatever it is. And so I love that you do that, dude. A little bit of research. I love that. Next up, what is your favorite meal? This could be something you cooked or had at a restaurant or something you had on vacation. Grandma used to cook. Favorite meal?
Oh, man. It's a
Stumped you.
No, you stumped me because like the favorite meal, like, is it the item you want or like?
It could be either. I've had people answer both ways, like the meal at a restaurant in this one specific spot, whatever's your favorite.
Oh, okay. All right. So if it's I'm cooking at home, it would be like the traditional Indian dish. It's called khichdi. It's basically like lentil curry. So it was like emotional food, kind of like how the Ratatouille movie is. So like for me, like I grew up with a lot of like memories around it. And it's very easy to cook. So that would be my favorite meal to cook if I'm cooking at home. If I am going out and I want to eat a meal outside, I'm usually blown away when a restaurant gets like a gluten-free cheese pizza done really well.
Oh, nice.
Because like usually most of the gluten-free crust like tastes like shit. So in Dallas, there is a place called Greenville. And if you ever come, I'm going to treat you there. Greenville Pizza Avenue Company. And I think in my life, like they've had like the best like gluten-free pizza I've ever had. The only other one to beat it is in San Francisco. And that one I had when I went for config.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Do you eat a lot of gluten-free stuff or you?
I don't have allergy. No, I don't have allergy, but I just do it for health reasons just because I've noticed that I used to have like a belly when I used to eat a lot of gluten, and Indian cuisine and food is heavy with wheat. So when I started to cut them out, I kind of felt like more healthy.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, dude. I tried to cut like carb. It wasn't gluten necessarily, but I tried to cut carbs a long time ago and I did a really good job of it. I like lost so much weight. Then I had kids. And now I just eat pizza of like almost every freaking meal.
Man, it must be hard, dude. Like, cause like your kid's like, hey daddy, I want to like have this chocolate. And you're like, no, you can't have the chocolate because you're in this regime. And the kid's like, I don't give a shit about keto or whatever like diet you're following.
No, it's impossible. Well, like Halloween's coming up, dude. So, you know, they'll go out and we'll go trick or treating and we'll get like literally fucking pounds of like Snickers and
dude, your kids are gonna hate you. Like,
oh my god,
you're gonna be like the most evil dad if you said like, oh, you cannot have any chocolate because you're following keto in this household and no carbs allowed.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's why I'm like 30 pounds overweight right now because we don't, you know, we basically eat like pizza and, you know, French fries and chicken nuggets like almost every single night because my kids are just like so freaking picky. But anyway, whatever. It's the life of a dad. It's wonderful, great stuff.
Dude, if you guys, you know, my favorite chocolate that it would be my dream to receive if I was ever going for Halloween trick or treat would be, you know, the Hershey's nuggets they have, like the silver ones, the plain ones, not with the almond nuts and stuff, the plain one.
Yeah.
The Hershey's nuggets.
Yeah.
That is my favorite. Like,
oh yeah, dude. Just plain chocolate. You don't really see that. Now everybody does like mixed, it's like the mixed stuff. And then if you're there like earlier in the night, you get your pick of it. But then by the end of the night, you know, if you got to that house like last is the end of the street, whatever, everybody else has been there. You're like, oh, what do you got? Like suckers left? You got like a couple lifesavers? Like, I don't want this crap. But yeah, the mixed bag, everybody's got the mixed bag now. And just you buy the big, like, you know, 10-pound bag or whatever. All the good stuff. It's all gone, man. The kids.
So fun fact for you, like India, Europe, and a lot of these other countries, like I grew up on Cadbury. Hershey's is primarily US thing.
Is that really? Okay.
And
Cadbury.
And it's so for me, it was like Cadbury was never as exotic as Hershey's because that was something I could never get.
Ah, interesting.
And Cadbury, in my opinion, is more sweeter than Hershey's.
Is it? Okay. I don't think I've ever really had Cadbury. There's like, I don't think you can't really get it. I guess you get like specialty stores you can get it in the States. Like you can get it
at Walmart, but it's just like, it's not a thing here. People here get Hershey's. And then have you noticed like the design of Cadbury versus Hershey's? Like Hershey's, like literally their design is iconic. It stayed the same, the Hershey's bar.
Yeah.
And it literally shows you the exact size of the bar, like the pieces inside. So I don't know. I thought it was just packaging well done. It's aged really well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's stuff, man. That iconic, classic, timeless design. It's timeless, man. And like you know, Cadbury. They change their packaging up like almost every other year. It looks like totally different. Yeah. All right. Next up, what is your favorite vacation spot? You travel quite a bit, so you get to go to all cool spots.
Man, this is a hard one to pick. Recently, I got to this year go to London for Figma Config. So I kind of like my first time going there. I really enjoyed it. And the food was amazing. Oh my God, like people are very friendly. And something about Europeans, man, like compared to Americans, like they're not all about the grind. They're more laid back, more chill, less of this hustle culture nonsense over there. So I kind of really liked that. And I was like, yeah, I can see myself visiting London again as a vacation spot, you know, a couple of weeks. I go to India almost every year. So it's not necessarily like vacation spot because I know a lot of people, their family members and stuff. So it's kind of like, you're not really on vacation. You're kind of like meeting up with people. So I wouldn't put it in that vacation category bucket. But then any of the South American countries like Colombia, Mexico City, because I feel like the smartphone addiction is less in those countries, in my opinion, when I went there. Like over here, you see everybody on their phone, they're walking. When you go to a park in the US, dude, this is like, you will see someone walking, but then watching TikTok or Reels or something. When I would see the same thing in Mexico or any of the South American countries, it's like they're present in the moment.
Yeah. I love that, dude. I love that. Yeah. There's something to be said about European and I don't know, just non-US countries and their addiction to technology and stuff, man. I don't know, dude. I lament it. I don't know, there's not much I could do about it. I try to keep my kids from like doing the same thing. Like they don't have phones and stuff, but like, you know, they have tablets and shit and they're all like, if we're at home, they're like on the tab. I'm like, no, 30 minutes a day. That's all you got. And then I find myself, you know, like checking my phone. I got my phone. Like, hey, Dad, what are you doing on your phone? You're always on your phone. I'm like, shit, you got me, kid. But anyway, I'm bad about that too. All right, last question. What is your favorite design tool that is not Figma? What do you think about that? You got a lot of design tools now, though, to choose from with your new sneak peek series.
I'd probably say Descript because, like, obviously because it helps me, like, you know, produce sneak peek videos and all these things. But even when I was in the day job and all these things, a bunch of design executives threw together a hackathon. And normally how the updates would work is the design executive or design manager would host a hackathon, give an update to the chief product officer. Like we did the hackathon, a text-based update. And using Descript, I was just able to like stitch together some footage and videos and photos and create like this kind of like highlight reel. And everybody loved it. So this is where like I got a lot of kudos for that, even though I was not even part of that like effort, but I just created that highlight reel. So I really like Descript as a tool, even though there are some issues I have with it from time to time. But I really like how it lowers the learning curve compared to like the Adobe tools in terms of if you just want to go and knock out a quick video.
I love that, dude. I actually have been using Descript for like Loom type videos where like we do a lot of that too, where I'll record a, you know, screen grab of me using something and explain something to somebody, and I'll use Descript to go back and just quickly edit it and edit out all the fluffy crap around it. And, you know, it's like a lot of times I'll see people use Looms and they have like filler words and likes and ums or weird silences or, you know, mistake. And, you know, Descript's really easy to just go and like zip and cut it out and just have that like really polished like presentation for, you know, someone like an executive. You know, I want them to see like my best side, dude, you know? So anyway, it's good stuff, dude. All right, Jayneil, this has been amazing, man. I have learned just a ton from all the things you have learned from talking to people over the years. Before we get out of here, dude, give yourself a plug. Let everybody know where they can find your series and your old podcast and all that stuff, or where they can find you and follow you and all that good stuff, man.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. You know, Jeremy, this is why I don't like going, even being an interviewer, I don't like going on other interviews because I felt like I was just rambling a lot of times, going on tangents. And thank you for being a great listener. So the main, like if you want to find me, like just go to YouTube and just type in Sneak Peek Design. You'll find my channel. It has got all my socials. But something I want to like tell everybody listening to this episode, the whole format of this or theme for this interview was like not being stuck in the research phase and then executing. So I would say if you have any ideas, whatever it is, maybe you want to do a presentation to your company. Maybe you want to pitch an idea to your manager. Whatever it is that you feel like you've been in the research phase for more than a month, I think month is a good enough time frame, month and a half. I think it's too long. Send an email to Jeremy. Like send an email, message Jeremy, and like, let's see if we can help you like get out of that research like phase and execute. And this could be like a small win that we can then share in the community. Like, hey, you listened to the episode, you emailed Jeremy, you know, you had a conversation and then you're able to like overcome that.
Do it, baby. I'm always happy to chat. That's it. All right. So check out everything. Jayneil, Sneak Peek. What was the URL again? Sorry, Sneak Peek.
Just Sneak Peek Design.
Find on YouTube. You'll probably see it on like your an Instagram feed near you. Incredibly popular stuff, dude. I actually love what you're doing because it's just so, it's brilliant, dude. It's like nobody ever sees the sausage getting made, dude. They always see just the final result and you have no clue what kind of time, effort, craft went into actually making sure that thing was useful, that Figma file. It's so important, dude. Amazing stuff. I just love that you're doing that. And now with AI too, a lot of people like super confused. Like, how do I use AI? How do I use AI? I love that you're doing it, man. Showing people actually how to do it. I think it's just leveling up everybody. And you are bringing such an important service to the design community, dude. And I love it. I love everything you're doing. Jayneil, thank you so much again for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. You got an incredible voice. He's like one of those like late night show kind of voice. It's very soothing and stuff.
I just need the face. That's the only thing I don't have. I don't have the late night show face and the the 6-pack abs.